A check or a promissory note, it's more than just a piece of paper. It's a serious, legally binding promise to pay someone money. But what if there was a way out, a legal escape hatch from that promise? Well, today we're going to look at the roadmap for exactly that, how someone can get legally discharged from liability. Let's dive in. All right, so to make this real, let's picture a couple of law students. We'll call them Maya and Ben, and they are deep in study mode, cramming for exams. This page of notes right here, that's their lifeline. They're trying to wrap their heads around how a promise that seems totally ironclad can, well, just dissolve. It all comes down to knowing the specific rules of the game.
And that's really the big question they're wrestling with, right? A negotiable instrument, the whole point is that it's a reliable promise. You can pass it along, you can sell it, you can totally count on it. But, and this is the key, these promises aren't forever. There are actual specific legal paths that can bring that obligation to a dead end.
Okay, so this is the big one on their study sheet, discharge from liability. Think of it as the legal finish line. It's the point where you are officially completely off the hook. And what's interesting is this can happen for just one person in a whole chain of people, or it can wipe out the liability for everyone, basically ending the life of that instrument for good. So where do they even begin? Well, the first path they start down has everything to do with the person who's actually holding the instrument right now. The one who's supposed to get the money. We call them the holder. And it turns out the holder has a crazy amount of power to just end the whole thing, all by themselves, just by making a few intentional moves. Okay, check this out. Ben points to this diagram in their notes, and it's a perfect visual of the chain of responsibility. You've got A, the person who made the promise in the first place, promising to pay B. Then B signs it over, endorses it to C. C does the same for D, and D passes it to E, who's our current holder. The key thing to get here is that every single time someone endorses it, they're basically adding their own guarantee. They're saying, yeah, if the original person doesn't pay, I will. This is where Maya, being a good law student, throws out a curveball. She asks, okay, what happens if E, our holder, just decides to cross out C's name? Maybe C is a friend, who knows? But what if E just takes a pen and cancels C's signature on the back of the note? Does that actually do anything legally? And boom, Ben finds the answer right there in the notes. This is such a critical rule. When the holder, E, intentionally cancels C's signature, it doesn't just let C off the hook, it also discharges D. And you might be asking, why? Well, think about it. D took that note partly because C's guarantee was on it. By canceling C, the holder basically pulled the rug out from under D. Now, it's super important to remember, though, that the people before C in the chain, like A and B, they're still on the hook. Their promise isn't affected. But, and this is the absolute showstopper rule, what if the holder cancels the original person, party A in our little chain here? If that happens, the entire instrument is discharged. Everyone is off the hook. Game over. You see, canceling an endorser is like taking out one link in a chain, but canceling the maker, that's like destroying the anchor the whole chain is attached to. The whole thing just falls apart.
All right, moving on. The most obvious way to end a debt, right? Just pay it. The legal term for this is payment in due course, but as Maya and Ben are finding out, even something that sounds that simple, just paying what you owe, can be an absolute minefield if you're not careful. So they stumble upon this note about a case from back in 1966, Srinivas versus Gundar. And the summary is, honestly, it's pretty chilling. It basically says someone paid off their entire debt, but, and this is a huge but, they forgot to get the physical promissory note back and destroy it. And because of that one mistake, they were legally forced to pay the whole thing a second time. Let's really break this nightmare scenario down. Step 1. The debtor pays the debt. Done. Simple, right? But then, step 2, the person they paid fails to hand back the promissory note or even mark it as paid. Step 3 is where it gets bad. That note, which looks totally live and valid, gets sold to some innocent person. This new person is what the law calls a holder in due course. They have no idea it's already been paid. So, step 4, when this new holder shows up demanding payment, our original debtor legally has to pay all over again. That first payment? It's like it never happened. The lesson here is crystal clear, and it's a brutal one. Always get the paper back and cancel it. Okay, next up in their study session, Maya and Ben look at what happens when someone messes with the deal itself, when the agreement gets altered. It turns out
If you're on the hook for a deal and someone changes it without your permission, you might just be able to walk away because the deal you originally signed up for doesn't even exist anymore. And their notes point to two major ways this can go down, and both are huge traps for anyone not paying attention. First, you have material alteration. And we're not talking about a little typo here. This is a big physical change to the guts of the instrument, like changing the dollar amount or the due date. This is so serious that it basically voids the promise for anyone who signed it before the change was made without their okay. They're just gone, off the hook. The second way is something called qualified acceptance. This is when someone agrees to pay, but they add their own conditions, like I'll pay, but only if. This is basically a rejection of the original deal. And just like with material alteration, it lets all the prior parties who didn't agree to the new terms off the hook. So up to now, we've mostly been talking about direct actions, right? Intentionally canceling a signature, physically altering a document. But what Maya and Ben find next is kind of wild. Sometimes doing absolutely nothing, just sitting on your hands, can have the very same result and discharge someone from liability.
Yeah, this is all about timing and playing by the rules. Just think about a regular check. You write a check, the money's sitting in your account waiting, but what if the person you gave it to waits like 6 months to cash it, and in that time your bank goes under? Is that your fault? The law says no. The person who delayed cashing it has to bear that loss. That's the price of inaction. And it's the same for other instruments. Some require a formal step called presentment for acceptance to lock in the promise. If you're the holder and you don't do that on time, well, that's not just a small oops. It can completely discharge the endorsers who came before you because they were counting on you to follow the procedure. So yeah, inaction can have massive consequences.
So, as Maya and Ben start packing up their books, the whole picture is so much clearer. They've basically mapped out all the main escape routes from liability. And it's not just one single road, is it? It's a whole network of different paths you can take, whether it's through a direct action, a simple payment, a sneaky alteration, or even by doing nothing at all. And when they look back at that first page of notes, it all just clicks. Every single item on that list, from canceling a signature, to paying up, to altering the deal, to waiting too long, each one is its own unique exit ramp off the highway of liability. They've really put together the complete roadmap.
So now that we have this whole roadmap laid out, there's one last question to think about. For the person holding the note, the one who's actually expecting to get paid, which of these exit ramps is the most dangerous? Is it the one where someone makes a tiny, unnoticed change to the document? Or is it that seemingly simple mistake of paying the debt but forgetting to get the paper back? It's a tough one, and the answer could literally be the difference between getting your money and getting nothing at all.